From the airport, there's an almost constant stream of soldiers marching to take up defensive positions in and around Port Stanley. And in the island's capital, troops have taken over houses left empty by British residents who fled into the countryside. For those who've stayed behind, even walking down the street is a nerve-wracking experience.
I don't even like it. I just don't like it.
Do you feel like a hostage here?
Well, more or less that. Because there's not much we can do. You're not allowed to go out of the town. Or even go into your home up on the hill there without all their authority or authorization and all the rest.
Have they told you you can't leave the town?
They haven't said we can't leave, no, but it's very difficult to leave.
Would you like to leave and
no,
get out of the islands?
Well, if we were all taken out of it, yes, but otherwise, no.
Only about 300 of Port Stanley's residents now remain. The other 700 have fled to remote farming settlements seeking refuge. The streets now are practically deserted, apart from the soldiers, of course. Over 10,000 of them now on the island, their guns at the ready, a bewildering sight for the Britons who are now effectively hostages.
We were supposed to carry on as normal, right? These arrows show suddenly you've got to change the way you run your traffic. How can you carry on as normal? It's ridiculous. The people here don't want Argentine rule.
The minister of the Anglican Church says the island's now an armed fortress.
As you look around, you will see that there's troops on every corner, and these have been thinned out considerably in the last 2 weeks. But for at least 2 years, we've lived almost without a police force. The people here are not used to the sight of guns, and you can't talk to a person if he's poking a gun at you all the time. The only conversation we get from these people is a gesture with a gun.
At the local supermarket, food supplies for the islanders are dwindling fast. There's been almost panic buying for English goods delivered before the invasion. But the only Union Jack left in Port Stanley remains unsold. No longer can children attend the local school. It's been taken over by a unit of Argentine commandos.
Why did you decide to walk out?
We walked out because we could not hold school in the conditions that prevailed immediately after the invasion. We had military presence, especially outside the junior school, the infant school. We had tanks, we had soldiers in the yard. And most of our school population were disappearing to the camp anyway, to the countryside.
I'm staying. I'm staying if it remains the Falklands, but not Argentina. I can't say anymore. It makes me so angry. The old people are frightened. They're frightened. Some of them are frightened to go out of their homes. They've been begging for food at the doors. And now I'm going to see if I can see Blue Marie, this is the chap in charge, to see if I can get something done about this old man's property. They're checking houses now to see who's left in them, who's not left in them. You know, for Christ's sake, somebody out there, do something. Something, anything. There's lots of us walking around with smiles, we're letting them laugh, you know, trying to make ourselves laugh, because we daren't set panic into these people. Somebody wants to do something, even if it's a mass, voluntary evacuation.
Easter Monday, and the Harriers are back on the hockey pitch. The pilots concentrate on combat. They go off, operationally drab, in flights 5 at a time to challenge each other. Up high in the skies, we see them battling, chasing each other's tails as they fight for the split-second advantage which could give them a kill. Fighting the Harrier is a complex business. It needs instinctive, intelligent reactions, instant coordination of radar, gun sights and controls. You have, said one pilot, to think like a train. Between the carriers, between the squadrons, between every pilot, there's rivalry. Invincible also houses 820 helicopter squadron with Prince Andrew as a co-pilot. Here's his helicopter lifting off.
Riflemen, our GPMG gunners, pick your weapons, all dressed back. All I want left here is 66, 84 men.
With all the flying, the Marines aboard Hermes get only limited periods on deck. One of these they gave over to test firing of weapons from the stern.
Fire.
The first shot from a light anti-tank weapon won a round of applause. They went on to give a display to the ship's company. Their main anti-tank weapon, the Carl Gustav, was next. Even the cooks had a go with the spare one. All the other weapons, which hadn't been tested recently, were fired off together. Machine guns and SLRs in a clattering broadside. And the value of the morning was proved when they found one rifle that didn't work and needed replacing. This is just an operational test to make sure that every Marine knows his weapon can work. But it's doing wonders for the morale of the rest of the company to stand and watch their firepower being blasted off across the stern. The Marines' principal transport to war will be the Jungly, the nickname for the Navy officers in khaki flying camouflaged helicopters. The helicopter gives the attacking force maximum flexibility. It doesn't even have to land. The commandos are trained to come down a rope, hand over hand, carrying a pack, a rifle at the ready. The helicopters whirl around the deck, preparing for every sort of landing.
And showed me what he'd brought back, which was a deterioration on the third proposals that Al Haig had had, and they were worse from our viewpoint. And he told me that he was minded to recommend the acceptance of these by the War Cabinet. I was really just appalled. I said, but we can't possibly. We shall never hold up our heads again.
Mrs. Thatcher really liked negotiations at all, or the negotiating process. Indeed, at moments, I think she thought the whole concept was in some way dishonourable, which I found very curious, because in a crisis of this kind, if one can negotiate one's way out of it so that one doesn't have to use the force of arms, it must be to everybody's advantage. Indeed, I thought it was my duty as Foreign Secretary to go to the ultimate limits in trying to find a way of not having to go to war.
I'd had a day of such anxiety looking at all of those proposals, and had we accepted that last one, to me it would have dishonoured Britain, and that I could not have lived with. I tried to warn Dennis earlier in the day, the great matters which we had to decide, and said that if it didn't go the way I wanted, I would have to resign.
The carrier is only a small part of a modern fighting force and carries only limited weapons. For its defence, it relies on its aircraft and escorting ships. In contrast, HMS Broadsword, one of the Navy's newest and biggest frigates, fairly bristles with missiles. She's our goalkeeper. She carries one of the world's most effective defence systems and operates close to the carrier to protect her. For several hours, the captains manoeuvred within 100 yards of each other while the Marines practiced their assaults from the flight deck. With helicopters buzzing about, it required all the delicacy of the diplomatic dance going on between London and Buenos Aires. Neither ship nor aircraft used radio, so the whole complicated game was coordinated by all this lamp. Whether radio silence will help avoid detection is uncertain. Reports say Argentina is receiving information from the Soviet Union, and Soviet spy planes have been watching us. Do you rate the Argentine Navy?
Well, looking at their lineup, they have a mixed bag of equipment. There's some which is quite old, but in many cases has been revamped. There is other parts of it which are quite modern. And much of the weaponry is modern European weaponry. They're a smaller navy than ours. They are probably quite a lot less experienced. We have the good fortune in NATO and in the Northeast Atlantic to be constantly practicing with a number of very expert navies, and we have a greater opportunity than most to keep our skills at a high level.
You have the advantage in as much as much of their equipment and some of their ships are British built.
Yes, certainly they're British built. They're good when they're British built, so I don't call that an advantage, but at least we know quite a lot about them, that's for sure.
You'd expect to have an edge over them, though, because of the training of your men.
I think we go into this with confidence. I'm sure we'd acquit ourselves with honour. I wouldn't wish to run them down in any way, but we are a very professional